I'm at the beautiful Hyatt Park Hotel in downtown Toronto with one of my favorite leaders in the field of personal development, Dr. John Demartini. He is a featured speaker in the movie The Secret, and he travels the world educating millions of people on how to have a breakthrough experience so as to maximize their potential and ultimately raise the consciousness on this planet. Welcome to Toronto, Dr. John.
Thank you.
One of your famous sayings, which I love, is what you think about and think about, you bring about. Why is it so important to be grateful?
Well, I think that gratitude is the key that opens up the gateway of the heart. And inside the heart is love. And love is like a window washer of the mind. And gratitude and love together really are cleansers of the mind. And our mind becomes inspired and our bodies become enthused when we have those two states. And I think that's when we're the most authentic. If we asked somebody if they had only 24 hours to live, what would they do with their life? They would say, I want to say thank you, I love you to the people that have contributed to their life. So I always say that that's the highest priority. That's the essence behind our existence. And so when we have that state, whatever we think about, we tend to bring about. Because we're most authentic and we're congruent in that state. And so we create. We're creators.
Nice. One of your public talks here is called From Stressings to Blessings. How can a person take control of their life and minimize stress?
Well, I define stress as the inability to adapt to a changing environment. And so the environment is constantly changing. So when we get attached to things, we get attached to a pleasureful or a painful thing, then we get stressed. The fear of loss of the things we are seeking and the fear of gain of the things we're trying to avoid is the source of our stresses. They're the two primary fears of life, primordial fears. So if we are not as attached, and we have a more balanced orientation and not a highly fundamental polarized perception, we have less stress. And so the quality of the questions we ask allows us to balance our mind and allows us to reduce our stress levels. Because it's never what happens to us, it's our perception. And if we change our perception, we change our reality.
Mm-hmm. Many people are stressed about money. I watched one of your videos released from the Demartini Institute where you actually gave a very uplifting and practical approach to debt relief. How does money and spirituality work together?
Well, I think that spirituality is that which is inspiring to each individual. If their highest values is raising a family, their spiritual quest is raising a beautiful family. If their highest values is running a business, if they're running a business is their spiritual quest. So their spirituality is what inspires them first. And I find that in any of those cases, it's about service. Either service to the children, service to a customer, or service to employees. Whatever it is, it's still a service. And goods and services in economics and goods and services in theology and religion are really the same. So I tend to think that when we're doing something that we really love to do, that's a service to other people, we're doing something that earns us income, but we're also doing the very spiritual quest that we have in our life. And when you are basically doing what you love and getting handsomely paid for it, you've mastered your life. Your vocation and vacation are the same that way.
Sure, that's the Holy Grail.
That's the Holy Grail. So most people have a Monday morning blue, a Wednesday hump days, a thank God it's Fridays, and a week friggin' end. And that's because they've never put those two together. And I believe that true spirituality and true materiality are not in fight. They're not in conflict with each other. In the Book of Wealth by Hubert Hal Bancroft, it talked about the two driving forces of human beings, their material quest and their spiritual quest. But they had to be integrated and become congruent in order to maximize both. So I'm a firm believer that if you see them separate, you'll be juggling them constantly. But if you put them in integration, you can do what you love, be of great service, follow your spiritual path, and have an abundance of finances in your lives. So I don't see there has to be any conflict in this.
Mm-hmm. Another one of your seminars is called How to Get What You Want. How do we get what we want? And also I understand that in that talk, you talk about an essential action a person needs to take in order to build a global business.
Well, you first have to define what that is that you're wanting, and be surprised at how many people have fantasies and unrealistic expectations about what they want. Anytime you minimize yourself to somebody that you put on a pedestal, anytime you exaggerate them and minimize you, in other words, Anytime you're too humble to admit what you see in them is inside you, you'll tend to inject the influence of other people's ideals and values into your life. And when you do, you sometimes will let that influence you, and you'll set goals that aren't really yours. You'll set goals that are somebody else's. That's why Emerson said, envy is ignorance and imitation is suicide. Actually knowing what's truly valuable to you, what's really important to you, and setting goals that are really congruent to that. They're really alignment on that. Those are the ones that you spontaneously are inspired to get up and do each day. And those are the ones where you have the greatest achievement. So knowing yourself and being yourself and setting goals that are congruent with what's truly important to you, and not the injected values of others, not the expectations of other people, not the shoulds and ought tos and supposed tos and got tos and have tos and needs of other people. Increases the probability of having the great achievement in life, which raises your self-worth, which increases your net worth.
What is a heart-driven mission?
Well, I believe that every human being lives by a set of priorities, a set of values, things that are most important to least important in their life. Whenever they are congruent and aligned with their highest values, they're spontaneously inspired from within to go and pursue it, whatever that is. Whatever their attentions, their decisions, and their intentions are, they have the highest probability of achievement if it's congruent with highest values. The highest value has been called by the ancient Greeks the telos. The telos is the end in mind, the ultimate end in mind. And teleology, which is the study of that, is the study of meaning and purpose. So our purpose is an expression of our highest value. And that is where we're most inspired from within. That's when we have the most balanced orientation and we'll embrace pain and pleasure in pursuit of what we're going after. That is because we're most inspired and our heart is open and we have a heart-driven mission when we're living congruently with our highest values. If we are living according to lower values because of injected values of others, we are less fulfilled. And as a result of it, we look for a quick fix. We look for immediate gratification, and we're more vulnerable for the injected values of other people. I said on The Secret, when the voice and the vision on the inside is louder and more profound than all opinions on the outside, you begin to master your life. A heart-driven mission is one that has from the voice and the vision on the inside is driving you. It's inspiring to you. You get tears in your eyes when you think about it, and you can't wait to get up in the morning and pursue it. And when you can't wait to get up in the morning and be of service, people can't wait to get your service. And this is very powerful. And whenever you're living in that state, your space and time horizons, the vision that you have expands. And you go on to do something to have ever expanded goals in your life, to eventually goals get beyond your life and you activate your immortal legacy. So the heartfelt driven vision is the one and mission that's basically the one that's congruent, that is inspired, that leaves a legacy.
And how can a person become clear on their purpose when so many people are disconnected from their purpose?
It's so true. Many people are. They basically are. Most people subordinate to other people. They look at their lives and they compare themselves to the people around them instead of compare their actions to their own dreams. So they're basically trying to compare and trying to be somebody they're not, which is a self-defeating objective. If a person will go through what I call the value determination process, which I explain in my website, drdemartini.com, there's a 13-step process that you can just simply ask questions and help you determine what's really important to you, because your life demonstrates it. I ask people, how do they fill their space? Because things that are really important to them, they keep around them, and things that aren't, they get rid of them. How do you spend your time? How and what energizes you? What is it you spend your money on and always find money for? What is it that you're organized at, most organized at? What are you most disciplined at? What do you think about most, visualize most, talk to yourself about most? What do you converse with other people about most? What inspires you most? What are the most consistent goals that you persist on? And what is the thing that you love to learn, study, and read about? If you look at those and find the common threads to those questions, it'll reveal to you what your life demonstrates is most important. Once you find what that is, that's the direction of your purpose, and that's where you're going to excel, and you're going to expand the most if you follow that. So knowing what that is knowing yourself. Because your identity, ontology, is the identity that we have, the study of our being, and that we live according to our highest values. We wake up our being, our real powerful state. And so our real identity is an expression of our highest values.
Let's move into your signature personal growth program, the Breakthrough Experience. Give us a taste of it.
Well, the Breakthrough Experience actually I've been doing it now for a quarter of a century, more than a quarter of a century. And I've gotten to do it in 60 countries. So I've been busy with it. I do it about 40 to 45 times a year. And it's a workshop. Sometimes we have as low as 40 people, sometimes 250 people. But what it is basically a 24-hour, very intensive, concentrated realization for people where they're breaking through anything that's in the way in their life and helping them turn their perceptions, whatever's happening in their life, to on the way. So they're learning how to shed emotional baggage, how to get clear about what their mission is, what are their key values, how to structure their life and prioritize and organize their life and delegate things away so they're getting on with their things that are most important, how to manifest things, the secret behind the secret that was left out of the secret, as we call it, and how to basically dissolve the subordinations to other people. Because many times we have these ideas, these other people have things we don't, but in actuality, nothing's missing in us. If we can see greatness in other people, it's because we have it, but we're not acknowledging it because we keep comparing ourselves to other people instead of comparing our actions to our own dreams. So the Breakthrough Experience is basically 24 hours with me to make sure I do whatever I can for everybody in that room to get on with breaking through whatever is stopping them from doing what they love in life. And it's a very powerful, not a rah-rah session, it's a very powerful, insightful, transformative, new viewpoint about how you run your life.
And as part of that process, learning to see the blessings and the challenges?
Well, when you're done with the program, you're going to take whatever you've perceived as in the way and you're going to say thank you, because it's going to be on the way. Because it's never what happens to you, it's your perception. So I'm going to give new questions so you have new perceptions, so you have new ways of looking at life in the program. For instance, when people have somebody that criticizes them, instead of thinking, why is that happening, you ask, what specifically are they doing that you're upset about? Okay, they criticized you. Good. Where and when are you criticizing people in your life? To stop and reflect. Then find out, how does it serve you? And if it hadn't happened, what would be the drawback of that? And then at that moment when somebody was criticizing you, who in this universe is actually doing the opposite to balance it? There's a whole series of questions in there to make you, when you're done, you're just sitting there going, thank you. There's nothing there except thank you. Because you realize that that's not a mistake why it's happening. It's actually getting you authentic. That if you get cocky and exaggerate yourself, you attract criticism. If you get humble, you attract praise. Nature's always trying to equilibrate. And in the Breakthrough Experience, I show people how to bring themselves into self-governance so they don't have to have the world have to govern them.
So challenges are a feedback.
Challenges and support, both are feedback mechanisms to get us authentic. And when we're actually authentic, we see both at the same time and are untouched by either one.
Interesting.
The medial prefrontal cortex in the brain is activated when you're living by your highest values. And your amygdala, which is a reward center looking for a quick pleasure and trying to avoid a pain, is activated when you don't. So the most important thing you can do is live congruently by your highest values and prioritize things and stick to the highest priorities in your life.
So then how would values influence our nervous system and our cells, and maybe talk about neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change based on new experiences, and maybe throw in epigenetics in there as well, factors other than DNA such as the mind that would turn on and off cells?
Well, the brain has neurons. It has sensory neurons, it has interneurons, and it has motor neurons. Now these neurons are just responding through receptivity and perceptivity that we're selectively attending to based on our values. We also have the brain filled with glial cells. Now glial cells are structural cells. They make up the glue that holds the brain together, you might say. And their responsibility is to make sure that anything that the sensory nerves perceive that help you fulfill your highest values are myelinated, are stimulated, activate neurogenesis to multiply and grow the nerves, and actually bring nutrition to them. And anything that doesn't fulfill your values, it creates apoptosis, which is a cell destruction, a toxic element to it to actually erode the cells, and actually a demyelinization. So the brain is constantly pruning itself neuroplastically. It's changing its functions and shape according to what our highest values are. The brain is an organ designed to do whatever it can to help us fulfill our highest values. It's that simple. Now, it does that by perceptual alterations that go in through the nerves that create what they call epigenetic changes and the genes of the nerve, which then create changes in the synaptic transmitters because of proteins and peptides that are being secreted. And so we have literally a perceptual change creating an epigenetic change, creating a neuroplastic change. And so our brain and our body, because the brain is governing the whole body, is doing everything it can to try to help us be authentic. And if we know how to ask the right question and we know how to interpret what the symptoms of our body are, we will see that it's doing whatever it can to maximize our potential in life.
Mm-hmm. So let's shift into disease for a minute. What are some of the psychological beliefs that people carry if they have cancer or diabetes?
Well, many times, if you have a diabetic patient, you'll find very commonly that they play the role of the self-righteous. And then hypoglycemic are the ones that are the self-minimizers. So anytime something challenges your values, you get a fight or flight mechanism. Your oxygen and glucose goes up. Anytime somebody really relaxes you and supports you and you get relaxed and protected, your glucose and oxygen levels can go down. You relax. One is sympathetic driven, one is parasympathetic driven. So diabetics tend to be on the side where they're on defense and they feel that they're challenged and they get self-righteous and precociously independent and want to control things. The hypoglycemics, on the other hand, you can tell them what to do and they'll do it. The diabetic, you can tell them what to do, they won't do it. Mm-hmm. So there are two personalities. They even found that cats and dogs have higher degree of diabetes and hypoglycemia. So the blood sugar is related to the personas and masks that we wear and how we're perceiving whether we're challenged or support. And it's through the autonomics that we're creating these conditions. The alpha, beta, gamma cells, and delta cells in the pancreas respond to different perceptions, whether it's growth hormone and somatostatin inhibition, or whether it's glucose and glucagon and insulin. All those are affected by our perceptions. So the diabetic is the one that's playing an exaggerated persona and looking down on people. The hypoglycemic is playing a minimized persona, looking up at people. And it's because one is challenged, one's supported. And so our autonomic nervous system is responding to our perceptions.
Mm-hmm. And in your breakthrough program, do you help people break through those types of beliefs?
Yes, there's many conditions there that people come there with. Mm-hmm. I tell them that our job is not to cure the disease. Mm-hmm. Our job is to balance out our perceptions and train on how to self-govern. The physiology takes care of itself. Mm-hmm. I wrote a book, an 800-page, 2-volume text on 1,000 health conditions and the underlying psychology behind them. And these, it's a very comprehensive textbook that I brought to health professionals on the psychology behind these diseases. And it's quite inspiring to actually see the cases with all the conditions that people have. Most people are just assuming that they take a pharmaceutical approach. But they may be disempowering their life that way. It's wiser to go in and find out what the meaning is. I like to call it diseases of meaning. Find out the meaning is, what it's trying to tell us, and learn the lesson so we don't have to go to the medication approach.
Sure, I would like a copy of that book.
I'm sure.
But speaking of books, in The Secret, on page 135, you say nothing is incurable. What do you mean?
Well, what I'm saying, I think I said that incurable means curable from within.
Yes.
And so I really believe that we sometimes, it also, just like jury within, injury means jury from within. When we judge ourselves, we're more vulnerable. Sports injuries are more vulnerable when we have judgments inside ourselves. When we push ourselves up in pride or put ourselves down in shame, we're more vulnerable to injury because we're not congruent, we're not authentic. Mm-hmm. And the same thing in our physiology, that the diseases, because they're diseases of meaning, and once we know what the psychology is that's driving it, amazing things can be happening when all of a sudden we ask the right questions and bring balance back to our physiology and psychology. A balanced mind helps balance the body, but an imbalanced mind doesn't allow us to. So you're trying to treat disorders without actually helping balance the mind. You may be treating a symptom, but you may not actually get as far along as if you actually balance the mind with it.
Sure.
You need both.
Yeah. How can a person see the higher order in life when there's so many challenges?
Well, the higher order is there, and it's simply because we're not asking the right question, so we're denying it. Mm-hmm. Every weekend in the breakthrough experience, I have people who've been through unbelievable things. I mean, from sexual issues to violence to failure and bankruptcies and all kinds of things. And also have people that are super achievers. We have celebrities that come in here with super achievement. But in the process of doing it, what I do is I help them define what it is that they're perceiving. And then I ask them a new set of questions to help them turn their perceptions into a balanced state. Because once you see a balance to it, I had a gentleman that came to the breakthrough experience that believed, when he came there, he had a partner that was in a hedge fund with him that led to him losing $750 million. The gentleman that he was partnered with literally went off the United States, went out into an island, disappeared, okay, with his money. So he's 1 minute he's $750 million, the next minute he has nothing. No credit card access, no nothing. It's all gone. So he was pretty perturbed. So we put him up in front of the room and we asked him some questions, and I showed him how to take and define what he thought was missing. And I asked him some series of questions of what did he gain. And when we got through, he was very stressed when we started. When we got through, he actually realized that if that man had not done that and not taken his money, there would have been a federal investigation on the company and he would have ended up in prison.
Wow.
With that guy. But by taking his money, he was released from that investigation, and actually everybody went to him for help, and so he was able to start, after we balanced it, he was able to start his own company that's now a $4.5 billion company. So he was in partnership, the guy took off with it, but actually that gave him freedom to have no liabilities and got on and started his new company. So I showed him how to see the same event in such a way where he was grateful. He would sit there and he goes, thank God this occurred. Because I always say anything you can't say thank you for is your baggage, and anything you can say thank you for is your fuel.
Sure.
And there is a hidden order in it. It's just knowing how to ask the right question and break, so I show them how to do that.
So in the breakthrough, you teach people to be more resourceful in their perception?
They become resourceful because of it, because resourcing is helping us return to the source.
Sure.
And the source is always that hidden order, which is grateful and love. And so the questions that I ask lead people to that. I've accumulated questions over the last 42 years of research that help people take pretty well anything that can happen and turn it into something you can say thank you for.
Beliefs play a major role in how we react and respond to life. What advice would you have for parents in terms of how they shape the psychological mindset of their children so that their children can be magnificent beings and not subordinate in the world?
Well, children, in the 1950s, they used to believe that children were born blank slates and that parents had to impose and initiate values in them and direct them and socialize them and this kind of thing. But they now know that children are born with already a set of values. They already have incredible creativity, already have quite genius capacities. And so it's not about trying to impose on them as an authority and as a dictator, this is what you're to do. We're here to learn how to communicate as a parent in terms of the child's value. Now, I've just been working with children and teachers in South Africa. They've given me thousands of teachers to work with. And we had this one township there that had young students that were in junior high, high school kind of thing. And their matric pass, which is high school equivalency passing, was 27% in this township. It's a very low socioeconomic rundown area. We went in there and implemented how teachers could link their curriculum of their classes to their own values, and how to take the students' values and link the curriculum to the children's values, and then how to balance out the perception of the children so they would respect each other when they communicate. And the matric pass went from 27 to 97. That's unheard of in the history of that country. And so everybody wants to be loved and appreciated for who they are, not for what we are trying to impose on somebody. So if you communicate with them and talk down to them thinking you're right and they're wrong, you're careless and you're going to try to fix them and they're going to resist you and you're going to end up being disobedient and defiant, and they're going to be labeled that. But if you minimize yourself to them, they're going to run chaos. But if you have equity where you and they are the same and you have reflective awareness and you communicate in their values, amazing things happen. And so I teach the children and parents or teachers how to communicate in the children's values and see them eye to eye, not above or below. When you treat them as adults, they become adult-like.
That's amazing, John. That's great work. Hands down to you.
I've been very inspired by what's happening there. We're getting ready to do that. We have another program in Houston, Texas coming up. We just did one in New Zealand.
Nice.
We're doing this wherever we travel.
Great work that you do. You tweet in your heart, you know what you would like to do, but oftentimes guilt and shame prevent you from doing it. When it comes to negative emotions or debilitating emotions, how can people Demartini them?
Well, my experience is the only time we have negative emotions is when we have an unrealistic expectation on other people or on ourselves. So anytime you set a goal that is not aligned and congruent with your own highest values, you're going to have the ABCDs of negativity towards yourself. which is anger and aggression, blame and feelings of betrayal, criticism and challenge, and despair and depression. And anytime you have those four things towards somebody else, it's because you projected onto them an expectation for them to live in your values, not their own. And you haven't honored their values. Because they're committed to the fulfillment of their own values, not you. Nobody's dedicated to you except you. So if you don't respect them enough to find out what their values are, what's important to them, and what they're dedicated to, and only expect them to make decisions based on what they think will give them the greatest advantage or disadvantage at that moment, you're going to end up with the ABCDs of negativity and have those emotions. So those negative emotions are not bad things. I try to bust that open because everybody's saying cancel bad emotions and all that stuff. That's just silly. That's childish. Those emotions are feedback mechanisms to let us know that we have unrealistic expectations, delusions, and fantasies about how we're supposed to be living or how somebody else is supposed to be living. When we honor people for who they are according to their own values and only expect them to live according to that and ourselves doing that, we don't have those emotions. Those emotions are feedbacks.
What a great way to live. You also tweet, true love is our ultimate objective. Now, some people would say wealth, economics, and money are our true objective. Explain yourself, Dr. Demartini.
Well, everybody has a unique set of voids and values. I have a feeling that everybody in the world has, it's been shown that every human being has a different set of values. It's like fingerprint specific. And some people have a very void and a value on wealth. Some have a void and value on relationships. Some have void and value on business. Some on spirituality. Some on intellectual. All of them are valuable. But whatever their void is, which drives the values in their life, because whatever we think is most missing becomes most important. Whatever that is what we love in life. So I'm not limiting love to just a romantic love. That's not what I mean by that. It's doing what you love and pursuing what is meaningful and loving to you, but not necessarily just a romantic relationship love. It's just the things, when somebody says, oh, I got to do what I love today, I love it. I'm talking about that kind of love.
And, okay, so from a global perspective, in terms of human consciousness and human evolution, where are we going? Are we going somewhere? Is there a final destination?
Well, from what I can see studying anthropology, I teach a course in anthropology. It's a 5-day course on the evolution of human beings. And if we look back, there's some evidence that the earliest stages in anthropology show us as living, but potentially as nomadics. And then we ended up going to little families, and then kinship, and then clans, and then communities, and then cities, and then states, and then nations, and now world. And soon we're going to go through the solar system. It's just a matter of time. Another 100 years, we're going to be traveling in space. 200 years, we'll be colonizing in space. NASA is working on a project literally for 150 years from now, 160 years from now, to be colonized. So this is inevitable. So we're here to expand. I think the human being, the red giant phase of this solar system will eventually engulf the Earth. We have no choice but to move on. And so we innately know that we have to expand. It's built inside ourselves. I kind of think that we're like stars in the making. And our real nature is really massive spheres of awareness. I sat with the astrophysicist Freeman Dyson, who's at the Institute of Advanced Studies, who's in the office that Albert Einstein used to be in. And we had a nice conversation, 4.5-hour conversation last time we were together, and before that, about 3.5 hours. And we were talking about the future of human beings, because that's one of his specialties, about where does he think it all goes. I'm a believer that we're going to continue to expand, and human beings are going to continue to colonize, and we're going to learn how to deal with every habitat that we come upon. We're eventually going to finally use this Earth at the best of our capacities, most efficiently, and move on. We'll use the solar system to our greatest capacity, and move on. And will be in interstellar travel. It's just inevitable. It's a matter of time. And so I don't know where the boundary is. Possibly galactic, possibly intergalactic. Who knows? And I don't mean that in an esoteric or metaphysical way. I mean that as purely science. We're headed that way. There's a friend of mine who's in Melbourne, Australia, Frank Roberts, who's basically a brilliant astrobiologist, and we're looking at life in the universe. I've written another book, a series on the origins of life and how cells may have emerged in the universe. And I really believe that life is literally throughout the universe. We just haven't come upon it yet, but we will. And we'll find it first in microbes, and we'll find more advanced cultures or species as we go along. And we're going to learn more about the magnificence of the universe as we keep expanding.
Well, thank you, Dr. John Demartini, for sharing your knowledge with us today, and enjoy the rest of your time here in Toronto, Canada. We look forward to when you're coming back. Come back soon. For more information on Dr. John Demartini's events, please visit his website at drdemartini.com. That's drdmartini.com.